It's hard to imagine how an entire city can get lost. There are actually many reasons why a city has to be abandoned. War, natural disasters, climate change, and the loss of important trading partners, to name a few. Whatever the cause, these lost cities were forgotten in time until they were rediscovered centuries later. Here is the list of 34 such lost cities. 34. Carthage. Located in present-day Tunisia, Carthage was founded by Phoenician colonists and became a major power in the Mediterranean. The resulting rivalry with Syracuse and Rome was accompanied by several wars with respective invasions of each other's homeland, most notable the invasion of Italy by Hannibal. The city was destroyed by the Romans in 146 BC. The Romans went from house to house, capturing, raping, and enslaving the people before setting Carthage ablaze. However, the Romans refounded Carthage, which became one of the empire's largest and most important city. It remained an important city until it was destroyed a second time, in 698 AD during the Muslim conquest. 33. Ciudad Perdida. Ciudad Perdida, Spanish for Lost City, is an ancient city in Sierra Nevada, Colombia, believed to have been founded around 800 AD. The lost city consists of a series of terraces carved into the mountainside, a net of tiled roads, and several small circular plazas. Members of local tribes call the city Tayuna and believe it was the heart of a network of villages inhabited by their forebears, the Tairona. It was apparently abandoned during the Spanish conquest. 32. Troy. Troy is a legendary city in what is now northwestern Turkey, made famous in Homer's epic poem, the Iliad. According to Iliad, this is where the Trojan War took place. The archaeological site of Troy contains several layers of ruins. The layer Troithia was probably the Troy of Homer and has been dated to the mid to late 13th century before Christ. 31. Scarabbri. Located on the main island of Orkney, Scarabbri is one of the best preserved Stone Age villages in Europe. It was covered for hundreds of years by a sand dune until a great storm exposed the site in 1850. The stone walls are relatively well preserved because the dwellings were filled by sand almost immediately after the site was abandoned. Because there were no trees on the island, furniture had to be made of stone and thus also survived. Scarabbri was occupied from roughly 3180 BC, 2500s BC. After the climate changed, becoming much colder and wetter, the settlement was abandoned by its inhabitants. 30. Memphis. Memphis, founded around 3100 BC, is the legendary city of Menes, the king who united Upper and Lower Egypt. Early on, Memphis was more likely a fortress from which Menes controlled the land and water routes between Upper Egypt and the Delta. By the 3rd dynasty, Saqqara had become a sizable city. It fell successively to Nubia, Assyria, Persia, and Macedonia under Alexander the Great. Its importance as a religious center was undermined by the rise of Christianity and then of Islam. It was abandoned after the Muslim conquest of Egypt in 640 AD. Its ruins include the great Temple of Ptah, royal palaces, and a colossal statue of Ramesses II. Nearby are the pyramids of Saqqara. 29. Caral. Located in the Supe Valley in Peru, Caral is one of the most ancient lost cities of the Americas. It was as inhabited between roughly 2600s BC and 2000s BC, accommodating more than 3,000 inhabitants. It is one of the largest cities of the Norte Chico civilization. It has a central public area with 6 large platform mounds arranged around a huge plaza. All of the lost cities in the Supe Valley share similarities with Caral. They had small platforms or stone circles. Caral was probably the focus of this civilization. 28. Babylon. Babylon, the capital of Babylonia, an ancient empire of Mesopotamia, was a city on the Euphrates River. The city degenerated into anarchy circa 1180 BC, but flourished once again as a subsidiary state of the Assyrian Empire after the 9th century BC. The brilliant color and luxury of Babylon became legendary from the days of Nebuchadnezzar 604 to 562 BC, who is credited for building the legendary Hanging Gardens. All that remains of the famed city today is a mound of broken mud brick buildings and debris in the fertile Mesopotamian plain between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers in Iraq. 27. Taxila. Located in northwestern Pakistan, Taxila is an ancient city that was annexed by the Persian king Darius the Great in 518 BC. In 326 BC, the city was surrendered to Alexander the Great. Ruled by a succession of conquerors, the city became an important Buddhist center. The Apostle Thomas reputedly visited Taxila in the 1st century AD. Taxila's prosperity in ancient times resulted from its position at the junction of 3 great trade routes. When they declined, the city sank into insignificance. It was finally destroyed by the Huns in the 5th century. 26. Sukotai. Sukotai is one of Thailand's earliest and most important historical cities. Originally a provincial town within the Angkor-based Khmer Empire, Sukotai gained its independence in the 13th century and became established as the capital of the first united and independent Thai state. The ancient town is reported to have had some 80,000 inhabitants. After 1351, when Ayutthaya was founded as the capital of a powerful rival Thai dynasty, Sukotai's influence began to decline, and in 1438, the town was conquered and incorporated into the Ayutthaya kingdom. Sukotai was abandoned in the late 15th or early 16th century. 25. Timgad. Timgad was a Roman colonial town in Algeria founded by the Emperor Trajan around 100 AD. Originally designed for a population of around 15,000, the city quickly outgrew its original specifications and spilled beyond the orthogonal grid in a more loosely organized fashion. In the 5th century, the city was sacked by the Vandals and 2 centuries later by the Berbers. The city disappeared from history, becoming one of the lost cities of the Roman Empire, until its excavation in September 24, 1881. Mohenjo-Daro. Built around 2600s BC in present-day Pakistan, Mohenjo-Daro was one of the early urban settlements in the world. It is sometimes referred to as an ancient Indus Valley metropolis. It has a planned layout based on a grid of streets, which were laid out in perfect patterns. At its height, the city probably had around 35,000 residents. The buildings of the city were particularly advanced, with structures constructed of same-size sun-dried bricks of baked mud and burned wood. Mohenjo-Daro and the Indus Valley civilization vanished without a trace from history around 1700s BC until discovered in the 1920s. 23. Great Zimbabwe. The Great Zimbabwe is a complex of stone ruins spread out over a large area in modern-day Zimbabwe, which itself is named after the ruins. The word great distinguishes the site from the many hundred small ruins known as Zimbabwe spread across the country. Built by indigenous Bantu people, the construction started in the 11th century and continued for over 300 years. At its peak, estimates are that Great Zimbabwe had as many as 18,000 inhabitants. Causes for the decline and ultimate abandonment of the site have been suggested as due to a decline in trade, political instability, and famine and water shortages caused by climatic change. 22. Hatra. A large fortified city under the influence of the Parthian Empire and capital of the First Arab Kingdom, Hatra withstood several invasions by the Romans thanks to its high, thick walls reinforced by towers. The city fell to the Iranian Sassanid Empire of Shapur I in 241 AD and was destroyed. The ruins of Hatra in Iraq, especially the temples where Hellenistic and Roman architecture blend with Eastern decorative features, attest to the greatness of its civilization. 21. Sanchi. The Sanchi site has a building history of more than 1,000 years, starting with the stupas of the 3rd century BC and concluding with a series of Buddhist temples and monasteries, now in ruins, that were built in the 10th or 11th centuries. In the 13th century, after the decline of Buddhism in India, Sanchi was abandoned and the jungle quickly moved in. The lost city was rediscovered in 1818 by a British officer. 20. Husa. Husa became the capital of the Hittite Empire in the 17th century BC. The city was destroyed, together with the Hittite state itself, around 1200s BC, as part of the Bronze Age collapse. The site was subsequently abandoned. Modern estimates put the population of the city between 40,000 and 50,000 at its peak. The dwelling houses, which were built with timber and mud bricks, have vanished from the site, leaving only the ruins of the stone-built temples and palaces. The lost city was rediscovered in the beginning of the 20th century in central Turkey by a German archaeological team. One of the most important discoveries at the site has been clay tablets, consisting of legal codes, procedures, and literature of the ancient Near East. 19. Chanchan. The vast adobe city of Chanchan in Peru was the largest city in pre-Columbian America. The building material used was adobe brick, and the buildings were finished with mud, frequently adorned with patterned relief arabesques. The center of the city consists of several walled citadels which house ceremonial rooms, burial chambers, and temples. The city was built by the Chimu around 850 AD and lasted until its conquest by the Inca Empire in 1470 AD. It is estimated that around 30,000 people lived in the city of Chanchan. 18. Mesa Verde. Mesa Verde in southwestern Colorado is home to the famous cliff dwellings of the ancient Anasazi people. In the 12th century, the Anasazi start building houses in shallow caves and under rock overhangs along the canyon walls. Some of these houses were as large as 150 rooms. By 1300s, all of the Anasazi had left the Mesa Verde area, but the ruins remain almost perfectly preserved. The reason for their sudden departure remains unexplained. Theories range from crop failures due to droughts to an intrusion of foreign tribes from the north. 17. Persepolis. Persepolis, capital of Persia in Greek, was the center and ceremonial capital of the mighty Persian Empire. It was a beautiful city, adorned with precious artworks of which unfortunately very little survives today. In 331 BC, Alexander the Great, in the process of conquering the Persian Empire, burnt Persepolis to the ground as a revenge for the burning of the Acropolis of Athens. Persepolis remained the capital of Persia as a province of the Great Macedonian Empire, but gradually declined in the course of time. 16. Lepus Magna. Lepus Magna, or Lepsis Magna, was a prominent city of the Roman Empire, located in present-day Libya. Its natural harbor facilitated the city's growth as a major Mediterranean and Saharan trade center, and it also became a market for agricultural production in the fertile coastland region. The Roman Emperor Septimius Severus 193-211, who was born at Leptis, became a great patron of the city. Under his direction, an ambitious building program was initiated. Over the following centuries, however, Leptis began to decline because of the increasing difficulties of the Roman Empire. After the Arab conquest of 642, the lost city fell into ruin and was buried by sand for centuries. 15. Ergin. Formerly situated on the Amudarya River in Uzbekistan, Ergin or Erginch was one of the greatest cities on the Silk Road. The 12th and early 13th centuries were the golden age of Ergin, as it became the capital of the Central Asian Empire of Khwarezm. In 1221, Genghis Khan razed Erginch to the ground. Young women and children were given to the Mongol soldiers as slaves, and the rest of the population was massacred. The city was revived after Genghis's destruction, but the sudden change of Amudarya's course to the north forced the inhabitants to leave the site forever. 14. Vijayanagara. Vijayanagar was once one of the largest cities in the world, with 500,000 inhabitants. The Indian city flourished between the 14th century and 16th century, during the height of the power of the Vijayanagar Empire. During this time, the empire was often in conflict with the Muslim kingdoms. In 1565, the empire's army suffered a massive and catastrophic defeat, and Vijayanagara was taken. The victorious Muslim armies then proceeded to raze, depopulate, and destroy the city and its Hindu temples over a period of several months. Despite the empire continuing to exist thereafter during a slow decline, the original capital was not reoccupied or rebuilt. It has not been occupied since. 13. Kaqmul. Hidden inside the jungles of the Mexican state of Campeche, Kaqmul is one of the largest Maya cities ever uncovered. Kaqmul was a powerful city that challenged the supremacy of Tikal and engaged in a strategy of surrounding it with its own network of allies. From the second half of the 6th century AD through to the late 7th century, Kaqmul gained the upper hand, although it failed to extinguish Tikal's power completely, and Tikal was able to turn the tables on its great rival in a decisive battle that took place in 695 AD. Eventually, both cities succumbed to the spreading Maya collapse. 12. Palmyra. For centuries, Palmyra, a city of palm trees, was an important and wealthy city located along the caravan roads linking Persia with the Mediterranean ports of Roman Syria. Beginning in 212, Palmyra's trade diminished as the Sassanids occupied the mouth of the Tigris and the Euphrates. The Roman Emperor Diocletian built a wall and expanded the city in order to try and save it from the Sassanid threat. The city was captured by the Muslim Arabs in 634 but kept intact. The city declined under Ottoman rule, reducing to no more than an oasis village. In the 17th century, its location was rediscovered by Western travelers. 11. Ctesiphon. In the 6th century, Ctesiphon was one of the largest cities in the world and one of the great cities of ancient Mesopotamia. Because of its importance, Ctesiphon was a major military objective for the Roman Empire and was captured by Rome and later the Byzantine Empire 5 times. The city fell to the Muslims during the Islamic conquest of Persia in 637. After the founding of the Abbasid capital at Baghdad in the 8th century, the city went into a rapid decline and soon became a ghost town. Ctesiphon is believed to be the basis for the city of Isbanir in the 1001 Nights. Located in Iraq, the only visible remain today is the Great Arch Takikisra. 10. Falsi. Falsi was a farmstead of the Eastern Settlement, the largest of the 3 Viking settlements in Greenland. They were settled in approximately 985 AD by Norse farmers from Iceland. At its peak, the site contained approximately 4,000 inhabitants. Following the demise of the Western settlement in the mid-14th century, the Eastern settlement continued for another 60 to 70 years. In 1408, a wedding was recorded at the Valsey Church, but that was the last word to come from Greenland. 9. Ani. Situated along a major east-west caravan route, Ani first rose to prominence in the 5th century AD and had become a flourishing town and the capital of Armenia in the 10th century. The many churches built there during this period included some of the finest examples of medieval architecture and earned its nickname as the City of 1001 Churches. At its height, Ani had a population of 100,000 to 200,000 people. It remained the chief city of Armenia until Mongol raids in the 13th century, a devastating earthquake in 1319, and shifting trade routes sent it into an irreversible decline. Eventually, the city was abandoned and largely forgotten for centuries. The ruins are now located in Turkey. 8. Palenque. Palenque in Mexico is much smaller than some of the other lost cities of the Mayan, but it contains some of the finest architecture and sculptures the Maya ever produced. Most structures in Palenque date from about 600 AD to 800 AD. The city declined during the 8th century. An agricultural population continued to live here for a few generations. Then the lost city was abandoned and was slowly grown over by the forest. 7. Tiwanaku. Located near the southeastern shore of Lake Titicaca in Bolivia, Tiwanaku is one of the most important precursors to the Inca Empire. During the time period between 300 BC and 300 AD, Tiwanaku is thought to have been a moral and cosmological center to which many people made pilgrimages. The community grew to urban proportions between the 7th and 9th centuries, becoming an important regional power in the southern Andes. At its maximum extent, the city had between 15,000 and 30,000 inhabitants, although recent satellite imaging suggests a much larger population. Around 1000 AD, after a dramatic shift in climate, Tiwanaku disappeared as food production, the empire's source of power and authority, dried up. 6. Pompei. On August 24, 79 AD, the volcano Vesuvius erupted, covering the nearby town Pompei with ash and soil, and subsequently preserving the city in its state from that fateful day. Everything from jars and tables to paintings and people were frozen in time. Pompei, along with Herculaneum, were abandoned, and eventually their names and locations were forgotten. They were rediscovered as the result of excavations in the 18th century. The lost cities have provided an extraordinarily detailed insight into the life of people living 2,000 years ago. 5. Teotihuacan. In the 2nd century BC, a new civilization arose in the Valley of Mexico. This civilization built the flourishing metropolis of Teotihuacan and its huge step pyramids. A decline in population in the 6th century AD has been correlated to lengthy droughts related to the climate changes. 7 centuries after the demise of the Teotihuacan Empire, the pyramids of the lost city were honored and utilized by the Aztecs and became a place of pilgrimage. 4. Petra. Petra, the fabled rose-red city half as old as time, was the ancient capital of the Nabatean kingdom. A vast, unique city, carved into the side of the Wadi Musa Canyon in southern Jordan centuries ago by the Nabateans, who turned it into an important junction for the silk and spice routes that link China, India, and southern Arabia with Egypt, Greece, and Rome. After several earthquakes crippled the vital water management system, the city was almost completely abandoned in the 6th century. After the Crusades, Petra was forgotten in the Western world until the lost city was rediscovered by the Swiss traveler Johann Ludwig Burckhardt in 1812. 3. Tikal, between Ca. 2. Angkor. Angkor is a vast temple city in Cambodia, featuring the magnificent remains of several capitals of the Khmer Empire, from the 9th to the 15th century AD. These include the famous Angkor Wat Temple, the world's largest single religious monument, and the Bayon Temple at Angkor Thom, with its multitude of massive stone faces. During its long history, Angkor went through many changes in religion, converting between Hinduism to Buddhism several times. The end of the Angkorian period is generally set as 1431. the year Angkor was sacked and looted by Ayutthaya invaders, though the civilization already had been in decline. Nearly all of Angkor was abandoned, except for Angkor Wat, which remained a Buddhist shrine. 1. Machu Picchu. One of the most famous lost cities in the world, Machu Picchu was rediscovered in 1911 by Hawaiian historian Hiram, after it lay hidden for centuries above the Urubamba Valley. The lost city of the Incas is invisible from below and completely self-contained, surrounded by agricultural terraces and watered by natural springs. Although known locally in Peru, it was largely unknown to the outside world before being rediscovered in 1911. If you liked this video, give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this.